Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today at this sacred temple on the planet StreamYard to open our hearts and once again fall in love with the galaxy far, far away. To reach out and welcome the cosmic energies of the universe into our bodies, flowing through us and binding us together. To embrace the ways of the light side by working together and being at peace with all living things. To listen to the will of the Force rather than trying to manipulate and corrupt the Force to our wills, for that is the way of the dark side, and also bad faith actors on the HoloNet. So let us all gather around the meditation circle, take a deep breath, and welcome positive energies into this room of fanboy conversation and thematic discussion as we begin our podcasting journey into reconnecting with the Force. How'd you like that intro, my friend?
Nice. That was really nice. You had a nice voice for the radio. Did you consider doing radio?
I was told for the longest time by my high school art teacher that I had a good voice for radio, and I actually did get to do the morning and afternoon announcements for my high school
Nice.
for on and off, on and off. But it was a fun gig. That's what kind of attracted me to the podcasting world for a little bit, and I always thought it would be cool to start a podcast. As you can see by the fact that we've been gone for a couple weeks, it's very hard for me to organize and at least to manage things on my own. I could really use a social media manager or at least a moderator to keep things at bay online. But anyway, we're getting off the discussion already. My name is Nico Rigoli, a.k.a. Nico Furioso, a.k.a. Nicholas Starhart, a.k.a. I have too many goddamn names. And I am the host of the show. We have created this show because I fell out of love for Star Wars a while back, and now I'm trying to fall back in love with it by watching everything, movies and television, in accordance with Wikipedia's canonical order. And every week, hopefully every week consistently, we have selected certain material to cover week by week to watch and later discuss with various friends and acquaintances, such as my friend right here today, David Garcia. How are you today, good sir? I told you eventually I was going to adjust the time of when we did this show so that you, as a European man, could be on and not have to deal with it being early ass o'clock.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for accommodating to me because, as you know, as soon as anything about Star Wars, any podcast about Star Wars, I like to be in to talk about it. And yeah, I am really good. It's a nice day. I have something to do later on that involves competition. I'm nervous, and this is going to be a really great way to relax because Star Wars is always, talking about Star Wars always puts me in a positive mood. So, yeah.
I'm glad to give you an outlet to just calm your nerves, to chill out. I'm assuming that competitive thing involves opening night trivia, maybe?
No, it doesn't actually. It involves multiplex, but I'll plug opening night trivia later when you ask me the question you told me you were going to ask me.
I look forward to being a part of the Jedi Masters Cup, by the way.
Yeah.
Really excited for that. Really excited for that. Well, anyway, since you are a newcomer to this discussion show that I've created, I always like to ask newcomers, how did your Star Wars journey begin, and where are you in your Star Wars journey right now?
Okay. I always like to tell how my Star Wars journey began because I think it's a funny story, especially for people who know me. When I was a kid, and I mean like a kid, 2 years old or something like that. I was the type of kid that always puts the same movie on repeat. You know what I mean? Like if you like a movie, you put it on repeat.
And that used to be me. That used to be me a long time ago, but it's an autistic thing, and somehow I just ended up growing out of it. But continue.
And for me, it was The Lion King. So, but the thing is, The Lion King was only available on my aunt's house. So every time I went to my aunt's house, I just put The Lion King on repeat time and time and time again. And my uncle just grew tired of it. And he one day said, I am tired of this. I am going to put a movie and we are going to watch it. And that movie was episode 4, Star Wars. especially this edition VHS book set that they own. And me, David Garcia, threw a tantrum because I didn't want to watch Star Wars, which is very weird to say today. Uh, and I watched it, and then yeah, I don't remember this story per se. I have been told this because I was very little, but I do remember the experience of watching it. For me, a very little kid that was used to animation, watching real people doing things with lightsabers and space battles and Lucas everything. I fell in love with Luke Skywalker, which has become my favorite character of all fiction of all time. And the rest, as they say, is history. And right now, I sit here being the manager and the writer of a Star Wars division that's coming very soon. That it's going to involve Nico here. I also sit here having beaten Joe Farrelly last year to claim the title of champion of Star Wars, and also retired from Star Wars competition. So, and also I find myself in the weird position of actually not liking some of the Star Wars content, which is a good sign because it means we have a lot of content. Because I usually liked everything, but there are like 2 or 3 things that I don't like, which is not a lot, but I think it shows that Star Wars has grown into a thing that has a very diverse content now, and I think it's a good thing. So
For those of you who are wondering what he means by Star Wars division and beat,
right,
insert
right,
person's name here. So
right.
we
So
we are trivia players. We have
yeah,
we kind of spawned from the movie trivia schmodown community, and we created a bunch of leagues that became sort of our own thing, our own little monsters that we were a part of. I've competed in several. I'm usually dominant in the wrestling circuit, but I am pretty good with Star Wars trivia as well. And Oh, thank you, Case, for changing the background, by the way. I wanted to message you out there, but I didn't know how to word it, and I was running on a time frame, so I was just going to go with what we had. But anyway, we play trivia online through StreamYard and things like that. David runs Opening Night Trivia League. You can watch their matches on YouTube. They're doing a Star Wars Cup. It's sort of a G1 Climax style format coming up soon. And they're also doing some tournaments to set up the next challenger for their Geek Grand Championship, which I love the name of that
yes, I know, right?
championship,
We
by the
we
way.
came out we came out with that this year, and I am really excited because it's. I mean, we already shot the start of the year, and it's going to be really, really, really great.
I look forward to being a part of this again after having taken a year off from the movie side of things. I won't lie to you, though. I've only watched maybe 5 movies over the course of the past year. So I might be in serious trouble. But when I heard Omaru was coming back, I was like, I need to take the gamble just so I can have that match. He's an opponent that got away, and I want to see how I stack up against him, even though I've done absolutely no studying whatsoever
Yeah.
over the course of 365 plus days. But thank you for telling us your journey of Star Wars so far. Now we're going to get into the rules of the podcast, just so people can understand what kind of conversations we want to have here. I got to adjust the screen because the little live icon is blocking it. So rule number 1, I can't really see that first word because it's live. If a piece of Star Wars, if there is a piece of Star Wars lore / history that you dislike, think about another piece of Star Wars lore / history out there, which you may love, that may justify the existence of that thing you dislike. Rule number 2, there are people who have given their heart and soul to making Star Wars content. Whether or not you like their work, they are still incredibly passionate and creative people. Be considerate of their feelings when discussing their work, especially with regards to any actors who got bullied off of social media for a certain amount of time. Rule number 3, there are multiple ways to tell a story. There are multiple stories to be told, and they all have a place in Star Wars. Rule number 4, opinions aren't facts. Instead of saying with all your chest, this is good / bad, just say this is / isn't for me, or my take on it is ... Rule number 5, Star Wars is a fictional depiction of real life. These aren't just action flicks. There are pieces of art these are pieces of arts with themes, messages, and life lessons that are there to teach us to be better people. Rule number 6. Star Wars is also a fictional depiction of real life with characters named Savage Opress, Dr. Quadpaw, and I'm a Gundai. Things with serious messages in them can also be silly at the same time. Rule number 7. All spoilers are fair game. We are going to talk as if the panelists and the viewers/listeners of this show have all seen everything Star Wars. And rule number 8, my personal favorite rule: if Ki-Adi-Mundi says something out loud, always assume he's somehow factually incorrect. Because Ki-Adi-Mundi is a dickhead, literally and figuratively.
Oh.
So those are the rules of the show. Again, we have those rules in place just to establish as much of a positive conversation as we can have, even though I literally just called a character a dickhead.
No, I forgot to say, I also host a Star Wars show called Let's Love Star Wars, which is a pure review positive show of every movie of Star Wars that I host with Alex Martinez Coronado in the Opening Night Trivia channel.
I would love to be a guest on that someday. A little bit of talent exchange. Before we get into the discussions of the content we're going to be discussing today, there is one little plug I want to make ahead of time. For those of you who know me, you know I like to do charity work for Penn State, specifically their Thon event, which raises money for the Four Diamonds Pediatric Cancer Research Fund. For 3 years, I did trivia for Thon, which David had a hand in helping put some matches together. Last year, I did building for Thon, which was a 46-hour Lego build that ended up going way longer than 46 hours because I picked a really gigantic ass set to work with. And this year, I'm doing it again with friends. So this is my little advertisement here. Building for Thon 2, hashtag Building for Thon 2. The stream will be going from 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time starting on February 17th and ending at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on February 19th. That is Friday to Sunday. I will be building the Lego Ninjago Gardens set, which is the big tower on the left side of this thumbnail, as well as the Volkswagen bus that you see in the middle. My good buddy Case Cornelese will be building the Titanic, which I think surpassed my Coliseum as the set with the most Lego pieces to date. And my good friend Chris Engel will be building this Lego Bowser set as well. So that will be a fun time. I will have a donation link soon. I was originally thinking I'm just going to use whatever link Penn State New Kensington has because that's the campus I graduated from. But I could not find one that was active. So I might have to just create one of my own again, which is fine. But I wanted to advertise that in advance. Just so you guys would be aware. That will be streaming on twitch.tv/Nicholas Starhart because that's an affiliate channel and I want to help grow that channel as well as this one. So just something to keep in mind. I have a little banner here. I'm just going to have that scrolling at the bottom of the screen. But anyway, we're getting off topic now. Let's get to what we came to discuss here today.
Yes.
We came to discuss 2 episodes of Star Wars Galaxy of Adventures, as well as an episode of Forces of Destiny. And, Tales of the Jedi.
Yes.
So first thing we're going to get into is Star Wars Galaxy of Adventures, Jedi versus Sith, hyphen the Skywalker Saga. And for those of you who are wondering, what is Star Wars Galaxy of Adventures? Well, it's a very, very summarized 2D animated telling of pieces of the sky of Star Wars as we know it. Sort of to help kids who may not have the longest of attention spans or just can't sit still. This will be like, this is the giganticest of Cliff Notes version of what Star Wars is. And in this case, Jedi versus Sith, the Skywalker Saga, this is the Cliff Notes version of Anakin, Luke, and Rey, their journeys, how they all coincide together, as well as the long-standing rivalry between the Jedi Order and the Sith, and how it spans all the way from the Phantom Menace to the Rise of Skywalker. This particular episode, Jedi versus Sith, it was directed by Barry Kelly. It was released June 28th, 2019. You can find it on the Star Wars Kids website as well as the Star Wars Kids YouTube channel for free to watch. I believe if you're watching this podcast on YouTube right now, you can actually go I included a YouTube link for you to watch this episode of Star Wars Galaxy of Adventures if you haven't seen it before, so you can understand what we're talking about. It's only a minute long.
It's super cool. It's really, really cool.
Yeah. So just to give a little bit of what we see in this short, I really like the animation style of this. It kind of looks like a cross between 2.5 dimensional anime and like an updated comic book version of the 2D Clone Wars series from the early 2000s. The way things bleed into each other is so cool. We go from the shot of Qui-Gon. We start off with Qui-Gon's lightsaber in the forefront, and then little orphan Anakin. Well, he's not an orphan yet, but he will be soon. Him as a child, Jake Lloyd's Anakin. He's in the background. And that's kind of how the whole story of Star Wars began, in a sense, was when Anakin looks at Qui-Gon's lightsaber when he pulls up his poncho. Yeah, his robes. When he pulls up his robes and Anakin sees the lightsaber on the belt, that's kind of what sets him on this path to how he becomes the chosen one, in a sense. Then it bleeds into the first encounter with Darth Maul on Tatooine, the Council discussing the Chosen One prophecy and whether Anakin should be trained. We get Obi-Wan promising Anakin he will become a Jedi, and we see them like growing. Literally, we see them both grow.
It's a really cool shot.
We see them both growing with each other, and that growth bleeds into their battle with Count Dooku on the Separatist ship, and then that battle bleeds into their battle with each other on Mustafar, with Anakin having the yellow eyes. He's officially gone to the dark side at that point. Then that scene bleeds into them fighting each other on the Death Star, with Luke looking out, reaching out, like, no, my old man friend, my master. And then we see how that is essentially where Luke's journey begins, of him going from that little boy under the two suns of Tatooine, transforming into the last hope for the Jedi, in a sense, training with Yoda and the ghost of Ben on Dagobah, becoming a Jedi like his father before him, wielding the green. And we see him battling with Darth Vader on the second Death Star. Then we hear Maz Kanata narrating about the journey this lightsaber has had, and how now it calls out to Rey, who is reaching out with it to Luke, of like, teach me your ways. Teach me how I can help. And we see her learning how to use it and the Force on Ahch-To, her battling with Kylo Ren on Starkiller Base. And then we kind of finish things off with a shot of all the Jedi and Sith that have been prominent in the 9 core movies clashing with each other, as like, this is the story of Star Wars, the battle of good versus evil, with space wizards, but like just good trying to triumph over evil however it can. And I know that you said you had a lot of thoughts on this, which I did not expect, because it's only like a minute long, but go right ahead. I want to hear what stuck out to you and what spoke to you.
I think this just spoke to me because it is, for me, this is Star Wars. This is exactly what I like most about Star Wars. I am one of the people that love the Skywalkers. And for me, when I started watching Star Wars, and then I discovered that there is like a huge universe that exists, and a huge lore, and it's a very big galaxy and a very big world, I am a person that likes my stories condensed, in a sense. Especially as a fantasy reader, I tend to focus more on characters and story than world building. As a fantasy reader and a fantasy writer, and for me, those are the Skywalkers when it comes to Star Wars. I am a very big fan of family. I'm a very big fan of family bonds. I'm a very big fan of interconnected family stories. And for me, the Skywalker's journey, and especially Luke's journey, represents what Star Wars is trying to teach us, because you see first Anakin's journey turning to the dark side, and then Luke Skywalker not trying to not make the same mistakes of his father, making trying to be the best version of himself, trying to be the better person he can be. And I think for me that's the message of Star Wars. Just you try to be the best you can be. Don't make the mistakes of the people that came before you. Let them teach you, and just try and triumph over evil and be positive to the world. And for me, these episodes just condense the message of Star Wars. You know what I mean?
I do, and I like that you brought up family and the ability to learn from failure. Because, for one, Star Wars is about family, not just biologically, but found
Yeah.
family. Like, Anakin is taken from his biological family, and he thinks he has found a family with the Jedi. He definitely has found one with Obi-Wan.
Mm-hmm.
But then he's like trying to protect his new biological family, as we'll talk about more when we get to the movies Revenge of the
Yes.
Sith and whatnot. Like his desperation to protect his biological family drives him to push his found family away in favor of a new one, which is just a manipulative asshole. So then it's up to Luke to not make the same mistakes that his father made. And so he's finding his own family in the ways of the Jedi, but then he ends up making the same mistakes. And then Rey picks up the saber, and she has to do everything she can to protect her own found family, because she didn't because her actual biological family is apparently the main antagonist of this entire saga. So it's like a lot of things are bleeding into here. And you also mentioned failure. Yoda says it himself in
Mm-hmm.
The Last Jedi. Failure is our greatest teacher. And that's a lesson that I've been trying to adhere to, only to
Yes.
be cut down by my own anxiety and not being able to handle the criticism. Thank God I had a talk with my psychiatrist this week that helped put some things in perspective. But yeah, like that is essentially, like George Lucas always said, and it's a quote I like to reference all the time, it's like poetry, it rhymes.
Yes.
And especially here in this short, this
Yes.
Galaxy of, no case, it's not Galaxy of Heroes. We got to change the thing. It's Galaxy of Adventures. But basically, with this short here for Galaxy of Adventures, the Jedi versus Sith, the Skywalker Saga, the tales of that, we see how much that poetry truly rhymes throughout all these movies as it's condensed into one 1 minute clip.
Yeah. Also, for the technical side, I think this short is just perfectly edited. I like to do AMVs and video edits and music videos about Star Wars, and I think I sent you a couple of them at some point that I like to do about Star Wars, with music and with voices and narrations. And I wished I could get to the level of this short technically and how everything blends together. I really wish I could, because this is exactly what I try to do when I do the edits as a hobby, because I just like telling stories through images and just images, short dialogue, and music. And this is exactly the perfection of what I would like to do. Just technically speaking, for me, this short is perfect.
This is what I like. Galaxy of Adventures. This shows me a lot of what I like about wrestling intros from the early 2000s, like back in the Ruthless Aggression era, when you could have cool songs accompanying like little highlight reels of like, here's how we got from point A to point B in this rivalry, and how things would blend together and mirror each other in certain ways, or how the story would advance. Like that's essentially what this is. This is a promo for the big match that is the Star Wars saga as a whole.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's completely true. It's completely true. And again, I really love, again, Luke Skywalker is my favorite character of all time. So for me, Luke Skywalker is in the center of everything. And or I make it in the center of everything in my mind, because, so I really like this short because it features him a lot, and it features his family and his journey in the 3 trilogies. So because the 3 trilogies, he's his father, but we at people kind of cared about Anakin Skywalker because he was Luke's father when the prequels came out, because of the whole "I am your father" reveal. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, and then it became the most iconic character of Star Wars on its own. I'm not saying that he's only relevant because he's Luke's father. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But yeah, and then the anime. I am a big fan of anime, and I have watched countless of videos of like anime intros made with these exact Galaxy of Adventures clips. So I think this short is just this very short capsule of everything I like about the Star Wars, about anime, about the storytelling, about technical video making. So yes.
One last note before we move on to the other episode of Galaxy of Adventures we're going to be discussing today. So in that final shot where we have all the Jedi and all the Sith that are prominent that make up the Star Wars saga as we know it, we have Anakin in there on one side, but we
Yes.
also have Darth Vader in there on the other side,
Yes.
which kind of fits this narrative that, like, even though they are both the same body,
Yes.
they're two entirely different personalities in a sense.
Yes.
Like
No,
Darth. Go ahead.
do not challenge in trivia that Anakin and Darth Vader are different people, because I won't accept that challenge. I am just
Fair. Thank you for telling me that in advance, although it never crossed my mind to make that challenge.
It has been done, my friend. It has been done.
But in a way, that's essentially what this has become over time, is that
Yes.
Anakin died on Mustafar and Darth Vader took his place, only for Darth Vader to die and Anakin to come back to life in the final moments of Return of the Jedi. And that's why Anakin becomes a Force ghost, because like he redeemed himself to make it to that point.
Yes.
And that's why we see no dark side Force ghosts, as far as I can tell. Maybe they'll become like hauntings with like the Night Sisters magic in a sense.
I mean, there are a lot of like spirits and ghosts, but I don't think there are Force ghosts. But we can talk about Exar Kun's spirit and all those stuff, but
kind of like Lord Voldemort with the
Yeah.
Horcruxes, like their essence becomes embodied and imbrued into like some sort of physical object.
But there aren't ghosts per se. There are like, of at least the only one I know of is Exar Kun right now that comes to mind. I think he was like just like his conscience that was there to possess people and try to achieve the immortality that a lot of Sith go to try to get, I think. So yeah, I am not very well versed in that, but just what.
Fair enough. I'm pretty sure there are like a bunch of things we've been missing in the comics lately that they probably dive into that sort of thing. But anyway, those are my final thoughts on this episode of Galaxy of Adventures. Unless you have anything else, we're going to move on to the next one.
Let's go.
All right. So next up, we're going to be discussing Star Wars Galaxy of Adventures, Star Wars Droids. I went to look up who directed this and found no name. All I can tell you is it was released on April 10th, 2020. Again, you can also watch this on the Star Wars Kids YouTube channel or their website. We have if you're watching this podcast on YouTube, there's a link in the description below for you to go and find this episode and watch it quickly. One of the things that really shocked me in this is that for some unknown reason, Dante Bosco does like a 5-second narration of the beginning of this video. I don't know why he was there, although it's a welcome surprise, because who doesn't love Dante Bosco? Zuko is one of the coolest cartoon characters of all time. But basically, he is narrating as C-3PO and R2-D2 are running out of an Imperial base, which leads us to this flashback / time-lapse montage of all the great moments that the core 4 droids of the core 9 movies have had. Those core 4 droids being, of course, C-3PO, R2-D2, BB-8, and Dio. Good to see Dio's getting some love now. He was a late addition, but he's quickly become part of the family in a way. So, like, the montage starts off with R2-D2 meeting C-3PO back in his nudist days in Anakin's hut. I want to note that the animation style of Galaxy of Adventures does this version of C-3PO a lot of justice, because instead
Yeah.
of looking like just the skeleton, the gross looking skeleton of a robot, like he looks kind of more like a fun, adorable children's toy that you would get at McDonald's. Like the way the wires are
Yes.
so close together to the metal, like he looks cute, he looks adorable, and that thought is only emphasized by him holding the flag in the pit
Yeah.
during the pod race scene. Then we flash forward all the way to A New Hope, where they're running through the deck of the Tantive 4 when Vader's battalion is invading the ship. One thing David knows this, I never really recognized this until I missed this question in a trivia match, but C-3PO's silver leg, his
Yes.
silver right leg, it's actually highlighted in this moment in the montage.
Yes. Oh,
For, for
you missed that against me, didn't you?
Yeah, I think it was against you in that match. I had no idea up until that moment when I was told the question was wrong that C-3PO had a silver leg, because it was just so reflective, because of like the gold on his other leg was just reflecting off the silver, so I never really noticed it. Then we cut to in the montage when they're now the property of the Jawas being sold. For some reason, C-3PO's leg is gold in this one, even though it's the exact same movie. So it's making me question. I need to rewatch those like first 30 minutes of A New Hope just to see whether or not C-3PO's leg made a color change in the middle of those 30 minutes. We see them escaping Bespin while 3PO is a sack of potatoes across Chewbacca's back. We get BB-8 awakening R2-D2 from his slumber in The Force Awakens. And then we see BB-8 running through that little Junker's hut in The Rise of Skywalker, where he meets Dio. And then as we exit the montage, we see BB-8 and Dio just sprinting down the hall of this Imperial base, with the music getting extremely hopeful as Dio says, and I think this is what he says, no thank you to the stormtroopers firing at them as they're running through the hallway. And then they make it outside, and Dio says, friends ahead. And then when all our mechanical friends are united together and doing their heroic poses in front of a beautiful background, Dio says, happy. And that's where the short ends. And again, it's just like a nice little heartwarming thing of like, here's what you've missed if you've never seen Star Wars from the perspective of these four robotic characters that actually have very sentient personalities to them. I enjoyed this. Again, still trying to figure out why Dante Bosco had a narration in this, but it's still cool that he got to have a narration in this for as short as it was. And again, I like this condensed storytelling. Just to be like, because I think the whole point of Galaxy of Adventures is for the kids who may not have grown up with Star Wars yet, or their parents are holding off on showing them this stuff because of violence and whatnot. This is a nice little way to let them know, hey, here's what you can look forward to in a couple of years when I'm finally ready to show this to you.
Yeah, probably. I don't know if I will start with this. I probably just start chronologically and just, I don't know, make them watch or something. I don't. But I like this short. It didn't give me as many feelings and as many, as many thoughts as the other one, because as I said, the other one was like exactly what I wanted from Star Wars. But the droids are a core part of our Star Wars lore, especially R2-D2 and C-3PO. In fact, when I watch The Phantom Menace, I always make the same joke when R2-D2 and C-3PO meet, that's the most important moment in all Star Wars, when R2-D2 and C-3PO meet, because they have been with us from the very start, and they were with us until the very end, both of those characters.
They are technically the only characters, as far as I know, that have been in all 9 of the core movies, and technically Rogue One as well. So they've been involved in 10 of the 12 movies that we've gotten, and they've played a significant role.
Well, 11.
Let's see.
11 if you count the Clone Wars movie.
Oh, right. Well, yeah.
They are both in it. So.
I forgot about that one for a brief moment. But yes, you are correct. They've been in 11 of the 12 movies. The only one they haven't been in is Solo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the way BB-8 and Do kind of make their way into the crew is cool to see as well. My sticking point for this will be this short made C-3PO episode 1 version look really, really palatable to my eyes, because I mean, he he looks like he's been through a lot
Yeah.
in that first movie. And granted, like, he hasn't been fully put together yet, so it makes sense that he would look the way he looks, with wires exposed everywhere, just hanging and dangling. If you're a child, that might look kind of creepy. So the way this makes it look cute and palatable to a child's eyes, like, I like it. And if there was a toy of this version of C-3PO, I would probably buy it. I would probably
I,
put it on my shelf.
I actually got a toy when I was a kid. I got a toy in a Happy Meal of this C3PO, I think. If I remember correctly, and it was okay. It wasn't creepy, so it was very golden. I think it was too golden for this version. The toy I had for the Happy Meal. So.
My relationship with mechanical beings is a little weird. I blame the Terminator ride at Universal Florida for making me afraid of robots and robotic, like, human beings for the longest time. So, like, just the wires exposed and all that, it can be kind of creepy for me sometimes. But seeing the way they portrayed it here was very palatable for me. Going to be very palatable for kids who are like, what is this guy? Why is he naked, in a sense?
Yeah.
And then once he got more of a shell in the later movies, then I was like, okay, I can get on board with this guy. I'm just telling my story here of my own personal experience with mechanical beings. But any other thoughts on this short?
Well, I only want to say that I kind of missed the other droids. I think there were other droids that could have, like, made more. I get it. It was just the Skywalker Saga, but I think just a little mention to K2SO or the L337 would have been nice.
Maybe even R4P17. That would have been a nice nod too. Because she was kind of a core part of the Clone Wars for a little bit as well, before she was decapitated by a buzz droid. An unfortunate ending for
R4.
Yes, for R4. So those are all the thoughts I have. Now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of why anyone who is watching is probably here. Tales of the Jedi, Episode 4, The Sith Lord. Released on October 26, 2022, directed by Saul Ruiz, written by Dave Filoni, Bryce Dallas Howard making her voice acting debut here in Star Wars as Master Yaddle, a character that has, in my opinion, is kind of famous for the same reason Boba Fett was famous before he got his own show. It was the mystery of the character. Like, who is this character? What is this character's story that we don't know anything about? And why do we only see them for this one movie and then they suddenly just disappear? And we kind of get the context of why that is here. We understand what was going through Yaddle's mind through all of this, and, like, why we no longer see her after the Phantom Menace. To set the scene here, the official description of this episode, according to Wikipedia, simply reads, a Jedi Master makes a troubling discovery. And in this case, that discovery is Yaddle learning that Dooku has joined the Sith, has joined the dark side. To set the scene of what this episode entails, we have Dooku using Sifo Dyas's security codes to access the Jedi archives and delete all records of Kamino from the library database. When he exits the database, word has traveled across the temple that Qui-Gon Jinn, who is Dooku's former apprentice, supposedly fought a Sith Lord on Tatooine. In response to this news, Jocasta Nu, the librarian of the Jedi archives, remarks that Jinn and Dooku both had active imaginations, To which Dooku replies, "A quality valued less and less in these great halls." Now, I just want to stop there and
Yes.
mention that, like, this is kind of a thing that a lot of Star Wars is religion versus religious organization. Are you truly practicing what you are preaching?
Mm.
And a great way for religious organizations to lose their way is to essentially stop asking greater questions, to just go with the flow of everything without giving it a second thought. When you probably should, because something problematic might be going on. Uh,
Mhm.
we see it from the council a lot. Like, and also it should be noted, the Tales of the Jedi, all 6 episodes dropped at the same time that Andor was releasing episodes once a week. So a lot of the themes are kind of coinciding with one another. Of why aren't we asking questions? Why are we just
Yes.
going with the flow of everything? Why is nobody listening to our plights here? And we're all just suffering while the top of the very top are thriving. If society is to benefit, shouldn't we all be benefiting? But with Jocasta Nu in this moment, like, we know from episode 2 that, like, episode 2 meaning Attack of the Clones, when Obi-Wan is trying to find Kamino on the database, she's just like, if it's not on the database, it must not exist.
Yeah.
Because she's always relied on that knowledge of the archives, so it never crosses her mind that something has gone awry, because in her mind, the Jedi can do no wrong, as far as we know. And so, like, also she says that Jin and Dooku both had active imaginations,
Yes.
which makes me wonder, like, both men are still alive here. So what are you implying? Are you implying that they lost their active imaginations? Um, because that kind of contradicts the way the council sees both Dooku and Qui-Gon and their various concerns, usually brushing them off out of their own hubris. Um, and it, you know, again, she's relied so heavily on these records for the entirety of
Mhm.
her career as a Jedi, that she just can't get it just never crosses her mind that, like, oh, something's wrong with the archives.
You know,
Or go ahead.
I I am really glad you paused here and you brought up Jocasta and all that like thing. I never liked Jocasta, like never liked her. I always thought she was annoying because of the reasons you have just listed, and I, this might sound weird, but I found a weird sense of satisfaction when I don't know if this is canon anymore. I don't know what they had done with it, but I really found a sense of satisfaction when in the Revenge of the Sith PlayStation 2 video game, Anakin Skywalker just impales her with his lightsaber.
Yikes. Again,
So,
we are a show that is meant to be positive, but you know what? I kind of understand your point here.
I said the positive thing. I said I was really satisfied with something.
But in your own defense, I guess I will say she is kind of like the Dolores Umbridge
Yeah,
of the
well,
of well,
okay.
not as mean, not as mean, but as like, I'm always right and no one else
Yes,
can tell me
exactly,
I'm wrong.
and that's annoying. And so, like, I mean, don't kill the younglings, but you can kill her. That's fine.
And you know that, as we will see as we go on, that this is a concern that Dooku is having with all of the Jedi
Yes,
hierarchy, of, like, no one is questioning anything. We are all
yes,
just kind of going with what the council tells us, and what the Senate tells us to do. And we're kind of like, this is Dave Filoni channeling his inner George Lucas, because George Lucas was a crystal child of the '60s. Like, he
mm,
always believed in freedom of the individual, not of the organization. Power to the people, in a sense. And the Jedi, what a Jedi is supposed to be, has always been based on good intentions, based
yes,
on doing what's right. But the Order has
mhm,
kind of lost its way, in a sense, and we are seeing the early stages of how the Order has lost its way, with the council becoming dismissive of Dooku and Qui-Gon's opinions and the opinions of anyone else who might think, hey, we should probably do something more.
Yeah,
And
and
oh, go
it's
ahead.
ultimately it's their downfall, because if they were more open about ideas, Anakin probably wouldn't have had to hide his relationship with Padme. And if he didn't have to hide his relationship with Padme, he would have probably seek help on other people rather than, the bad guy.
Not only that, but you're talking about in the future of Star Wars canon. Whereas in the now, in this moment right now,
Yes,
had
true.
someone listened to Dooku, he might not be going down the path that we're going to see him go down over the course of the next 16 minutes of this episode.
Yeah, that's
Because
also true.
so we see so we move on to the final face-to-face interaction between Dooku and Qui-Gon, with Yaddle present as well. As Dooku questions Qui-Gon as to what happened on Tatooine. When Qui-Gon says he encountered a Sith Lord, Dooku basically says, "Let me guess, Council wasn't eager to validate that conclusion." To which Qui-Gon was
Yes.
like, "Nah, fam," and then Dooku mentions that he's been warning them about the coming darkness for years and was never taken seriously. Yaddle interjects, sort of trying to play devil's advocate for the council, saying, "I don't doubt Qui-Gon is right about what happened specifically to him on Tatooine, but the council still has to approach things with caution until we know more." Um, which I guess is fair. I guess is
Yeah.
fair. They weren't there. They don't know what happened. They can only go off of Qui-Gon's story, and it's not like they can ask the other guy because because Darth Maul is elsewhere at the moment. Um, anyway, Dooku tells Qui-Gon that a Sith isn't to be trifled with, and he won't be there to protect his old Padawan. So at this point, I have to keep in mind we now know that at this point in time, Dooku is Sidious's puppet for the
Yes.
moment. Not yet the gentleman monster that we know from the movies, but he's a puppet at this point. So we have to assume that there's a lot more to this warning that he's giving Qui-Gon. We as viewers understand the context of this warning, but Qui-Gon does not. So it's like Dooku, we'll figure out later, he obviously didn't want Qui-Gon to die. He thought maybe he could sway Qui-Gon his way to the movement. But what do you think is going through Dooku's mind in this moment that he can't really say out loud?
Well, I think it's just. I think he knows that it's going to be a battle. He knows that there is going to be bloodshed. He knows Palpatine is going to make a move, and it's going to be a violent move. He knows about the plans with Naboo. So obviously, he probably just wants to keep Qui-Gon away from all that. So that's probably, aside from the worry of and doubts, because we still see him doubting about, betraying his friends and betraying people that he is close to because of a greater good. He also wants to protect Qui-Gon because he knows that he knows what's going to happen on Naboo. He knows it. So, and he also knows that now Qui-Gon is very close to the conflict on Naboo. So, I
And
think
also,
that.
and also, we have to keep in mind he knows what Darth Maul is capable of. Like
Yes,
I doubt Sidious ever brought them together, especially considering I don't think. I'm trying to think back to dialogue Maul has had throughout his tenure in Star Wars, and I don't know if he ever said that he met Dooku.
I don't remember. I haven't seen. I haven't read the comics or read his books, but in like in media, in audiovisual media content, I don't think so. No, I don't
Oh,
remember.
okay, but at least he knows. He's probably seen, or at least Sidious has told him about Darth Maul and what he brings to the table. By the way, doesn't this kind of further the fact
Yes,
that the rule of two is bullshit?
I am really surprised that Dooku knows about Maul because of that. I mean, I wouldn't, I am not really surprised that Sidious is playing with them and he is disregarding the rule of two. But if you are having both apprentices with a rule of two in place, you don't tell it the apprentices that you have another one.
Like this seems to be a recurring theme in Star Wars of like Sidious is the mastermind, and he's got the core apprentice, but then there's always
Yes.
uh, there's always a third somehow in the equation that is not totally
Yes.
in the picture, but they're
Yes.
there in as the understudy.
I
And in this
haven't
case,
I haven't played the games, but correct me if I'm wrong. Starkiller is Darth Vader's apprentice, right?
Starkiller is Darth Vader's apprentice. Now, granted, that game is no longer canon, but you could also make the argument that like maybe the Inquisitors are like
Well, those
that,
are
that.
Darth Vader as well. I was thinking more of Mara Jade when thinking of the Emperor, when with Darth Vader.
But basically, it's either always Sidious
Yes.
has an understudy ready to go, or the apprentice that Sidious is thinking this guy will overtake me at some point. They've always had an understudy ready
Yeah.
to go. In Dooku's case, that was Ventress, and then it was
Mhm.
Savage, and then Savage kind of became Maul's apprentice,
Yeah.
and then everything got thrown out of whack there. So,
Yeah.
but basically, like the rule of two is the most unfollowed rule of Star
Mhm.
Wars canon
Yeah.
in existence, and I'm kind of fine with that. I'm just like,
That's
someone's
right.
got to point it out. Someone's got to point it out. But anyway, where was I in my notes? So um, after Dooku gives his warning to Qui-Gon, Qui-Gon takes this moment to praise Obi-Wan, to which Dooku says, I should like to meet him someday. You're always singing his praises. They do eventually meet. Granted,
Yes.
it's not under the circumstances I think either of those two men thought the meeting would take place. Um, Specifically in bondage.
Hmm.
Um, but as the I don't know if that was an elevator Qui-Gon was walking into, or if he was just going into his,
Probably. Probably.
or if it might have just been his own room. But either way, when that door slides closed, Dooku looks sad, like he almost knows this is the last time he will see Qui-Gon alive. And so Yaddle asks him if he's okay, and like a proud papa, Dooku says, "They grow up so fast, our students." This spoke to me as someone who has taught little kids Taekwondo, and then taken long hiatuses away from training. And then when I would come back, it's always amazing and shocking to me how much those kids I have taught have grown up each time I return. Like there are kids I've been training since they were like maybe 10,
Hmm.
and because I had gotten into teaching at a young age myself. It was one of the privileges of being a black belt. It was you have to learn to teach at a young age. So now there are some of those kids that I taught, they're like 18, 21, like they're grown up, they're adults now too, and it's kind of scary. But it kind of warms my heart that they're now living their best lives in a sense. And for Dooku, he's like, look at this young man and what that I trained and what he's grown up into, someone I can
Yeah.
be proud of. And that is essentially what sets Dooku over the deep end. This
Mhm.
because we cut to the opening credits, and then we cut to the great tree located at the Jedi Temple, a tree that Dooku would take Qui-Gon to as a boy, because Coruscant was Qui-Gon's birthplace, and Coruscant is a place of metal and noise. It's a very urban planet. The planet is one big city, and so Qui-Gon developed a fascination for this tree because there was nothing else like it that he could see on Coruscant. It kind of brings me back to when Rey in The Force Awakens arrives at Maz Kanata's castle, and she's like, "I didn't know there was this much green in the whole galaxy." That
Yeah.
what we're seeing is just the fraction of green that Qui-Gon got to look at every now and
Yeah.
then when he wasn't on mission, and what that tree meant to him. And that tree, because it meant something to Qui-Gon, it means something to Dooku. And Dooku at this stage is kind of going through like his own version of the 5 stages of grief, because this is right after the events of the
Yes.
Battle of Naboo. Qui-Gon has been killed by Maul, and apparently this is right before the funeral. This is right
Mhm.
before the funeral that takes place on Naboo. And Dooku is like, we all deal with death differently. And Dooku is like, Qui-Gon is one with the Force now. Time to let him go. To which Yaddle is just like, you can do that sort of thing. And Qui-Gon, not Qui-Gon, Dooku is like, what choice do I have? So he's heartbroken. We are essentially seeing him going through like the Batman One Bad Day arc, where Batman finally kills the Joker after the Joker pushed him too far. Or another comparison to be made, Frank Castle after his entire family is killed right in front of him and he becomes the Punisher. Like, this is Dooku's breaking point. This is where he's at his most vulnerable and therefore at his most manipulative.
Yeah.
He's
The most eager to be manipulated. Yes.
Yes. So I guess we'll just stop here for just a second and like where we are in this thus far. What are your thoughts?
I think it's really, really interesting to see what the breaking point of different people are to the dark side, and I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if I wouldn't be surprised if Darth Sidious ordered Darth Maul to kill Qui-Gon specifically to set Maul over the edge, to set Dooku over the edge. Because we know that Palpatine uses manipulation, and he uses the loved ones, and he uses the fear of loss and the loss itself to manipulate people. He has done it many times. And I really wouldn't be surprised if he knew that the death of Qui-Gon will be the finishing blow to Dooku swelling to the dark side completely and swearing his allegiance to him. And I wouldn't be surprised if he told him, whatever you do, just kill Qui-Gon. You don't have to kill the other one, but you have to kill Qui-Gon no matter what.
I mean, we know for a fact that this is what Sidious has said. Like he has said to wipe them out, all of them.
Yes,
that was a different part of the movie, but still, like his intentions are always clear. Like,
yes, but I think what I'm saying is that there is one thing that wipe them out, all of them, when you say it to Newt Gunray and that, because that was an order gave to Newt Gunray about the Gangans. So what I'm saying is that maybe the order that Sidious gave Maul specifically was to kill Qui-Gon. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if it's true, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me either, because Palpatine is basically the Bill Belichick of the Sith Lords. Like he's always planning. Like he's always got a backup plan for when his plan that rarely fails somehow does fail. And so if he did tell Maul, kill the Jedi, it wouldn't surprise me if that was what happened. Before we continue, I just want to ask, because I already gave my own personal experience as someone who has taught other people. Have you ever had like a mentorship role?
I mean, maybe. I think maybe the closest thing I had was the last season of Trivia, when I managed a new build team that was Duel of the Fates with Brittany Tapley and Tyler Birch. They were already like awesome Trivia players on their own. Brittany's a champion now, but I would like to think. I mean, they have said it to me, so I would like to think I made them better than what they are. And now this year we are in opposite factions. So yeah, maybe that's probably the only thing. But no, I am not. I am not the teacher kind. No.
Fair enough. One more thing about the Great Tree. Like I'm pretty sure there have been like a lot of kids who have been city kids their whole lives, and then their parents took them to that one camping trip, and it left a very lasting effect on them. Of like, I like it out here. I want to stay connected to this sort of thing. Granted, that's a little harder these days, just because it's so easy to be connected to the industrial world with shit like this.
Yes.
Of phones constantly being at our disposal all the time. It's very hard to, it's very easy, I mean, to lose track of the little things in life, and nature is one of those. Granted, nature is actually extremely huge, but like it's one of the things that we take for granted as
Yeah.
as a little thing. But anyway, getting back to the actual
Yes.
episode we're discussing. So we fast forward to Yaddle following Dooku to Sidious's Sith lair. We get that conversation between Sidious and Dooku that Yaddle is overhearing from behind. So Dooku says Sidious went too far by letting Maul kill Qui-Gon, to which Sidious replies, "Hey, Maul died too, and he died in the name of our greater goal to remake the galaxy. So as far as I'm concerned, we're even. Sacrifices are necessary." To
Hey.
which
Yeah.
to which Dooku states that Qui-Gon could have been a powerful ally. To which Sidious implies, "Yeah, for you." Um, so Dooku asks if his loyalty is being questioned, to which Sidious says, "Always." And there's a point about manipulation I want to make in a few moments, but like this is how Sidious gets people. Is like he's always doubting the people he brings into his inner circle just so he can make them prove themselves more to him.
Mhm. And also, this it's very interesting because he at first he's always doubting and making them prove themselves, but then in the end, the assurance he has on the grip he holds on people is usually his downfall. Has happened twice now. So it is very interesting that contrast of you seeing him doubting people at first, but then being so sure about his control over them that makes him overconfident.
Not only
And
that,
then,
it's happened twice in the exact
yeah,
same way.
yeah.
Uh,
So, just a comment, I guess.
so after Sidious says, "Yeah, I always doubt you," Dooku talks about all the sacrifices he's made, Sifo Dyas, Kamino, the clones, betraying everyone and everything he knows. It's at this point that
Yeah, basically making a very great confessions for the overhearing person.
I was also thinking like Judas by Fozzie is playing in the background of
Yeah.
this entire thing. Like basically everything Dooku is saying is the chorus of Judas by Fozzie. What have I become now that I've
Yeah.
betrayed everyone I've ever loved and pushed them all away? Like that's essentially what's
Yeah.
going on here with Dooku.
For those who
Um,
don't know, that's Chris Jericho's theme.
Yes, and it is an earwig song because it honestly, outside of wrestling, it probably wouldn't be that good, but it has that staying power of
Yeah.
wrestling. It somehow became good based on repetition.
Yep.
But anyway, Sidious simply says, "Yeah, you've sacrificed all this, and I'm going to need you to bend over backwards and sacrifice even more for me and this greater cause that we're pursuing." Um, And this is when Yaddle is finally like, "Okay, enough of this. I'm coming out of hiding. I got to help Dooku try and see the light in all this." Like she comes out of hiding when Dooku asks to basically Sidious, but also to himself and to the world around him, how many deaths have taken place because of me? And Sidious replies, "Such is the price of freedom,"
Mm-hmm.
which if you think about it, that's kind of a Saw Gerrera line. But in the context of who is delivering it in this moment, we know that that's a load of bullshit.
All right. Yeah. Can you repeat the question? So I zoned out for a second.
So I was saying that like uh, Dooku asks himself
Yeah.
and basically the world around him how many deaths have taken
Yeah.
place because of him, and
Yeah.
then Sidious replies, "Such is the price of freedom." And
Right.
when I heard that, "Such is the price of freedom" in my head, I thought a bit of Saw Gerrera
Ah,
because
I don't like So Guerrera. I Here's the thing. I think So Guerrera is an interesting character, but it's not one that you are meant to like for me. And I think it's wrong to idolize him. I don't know if you were going to like say
his
that.
his intentions of freedom, Saw Gerrera, have always been good. His methods, not so much. And I think somewhere along the line, somewhere down the road, he may have lost
his way.
his way to the point that those good intentions also fell to the wayside. But nevertheless, his goal was always the freedom of the galaxy. Whereas
Yeah.
when we hear Sidious delivering this line, such as the price of freedom,
But we
we
know
know
he's not talking about. Yeah.
we know it's bullshit. We know
Yeah.
what Sidious's actual intentions are, what his goals are for the galaxy, and that's what drives Yaddle out of hiding. Is like, okay, enough of this. And when Yaddle pops out, this is when Sidious is like, "So I have been betrayed." To which Dooku yells, "No!" And again, this is how Sidious is so good at manipulating people. He will accuse them of doing the worst possible thing to him, whether he believes they've done that thing or not, reminding them of their expendability in the process and putting them in a position where they have to prove their loyalty to him. So Dooku, who is at his most desperate here, he's at his breaking point. Yaddle is trying to give him a way out. She is like, you're gonna have to atone for your wrongs, but it's not too late to do what's right. And Dooku just can't. He feels like he's too far gone at this point. He can't take that. And Sidious reminds Dooku, the whole reason you joined me is because the Jedi have become puppets to a corrupt Republic Senate, which, by the way, Palpatine is about to be in control of, which is another thing we have to think about. Thank you, Case. This is a great episode of Tales of the Jedi. It really is. Where was I in my notes? Sidious reminds him of why he joined him in the first place. And he tells Dooku, prove your loyalty by killing Yaddle. By the way, when Sidious mentions what the Jedi have become in terms of being puppets to the Senate, Yaddle's facial expression changes because she knows he's not wrong.
She agrees, yeah, and it is right. I mean, the Jedi Council, even though they are very adamant of we serve ourselves, we don't serve the Senate, at some point they just go by the Senate most of the times, even though the Jedi Council are reluctant of it. So yeah, there is and the problem that the Senate is corrupt, even though Palpatine is not yet in it, it speaks volumes of how everything, like the Senate, the Jedi Council, has gone off the rails. I never liked most of the politics of the Jedi Council in the first place. I think their attachment rule is kind of bullshit. But yeah, I think they are right in wanting a change in the Jedi Council. They just, it's Palpatine and it's doing it for selfish reasons instead of the reason they should be done. And I think without Palpatine, Dooku will probably have seeked the change, but with a better method. I believe so, if Palpatine didn't exist.
It's a recurring theme of this podcast, like desperate people making desperate choices. Yes. They don't see another way, and so they go for the one where things are probably the most drastic, if not, I don't want to say the dumbest, but with the most to
questionable.
Risk.
Yes.
Yeah, the most questionable and risky. And Dooku tells Yaddle, "I'm afraid." Yaddle says, "I know you are," and then Dooku finishes, "I'm afraid it's too late." Lightsaber ignites, and this is where the fight ensues. Dooku is getting the upper hand against Yaddle, which kind of forces Yaddle to hide once more behind the ship that's in the hangar. She tells Dooku from afar, "Hey, you were right. You were right about everything. The council should have listened. I probably should have stuck up for you. Qui-Gon didn't have to die. And I've stepped down from the council for these reasons." She's trying to reach Dooku however she can. Unfortunately, the combat continues. Yaddle looks like she's about to make a break for her shuttle. Dooku accuses her of running back to the council, to which Yaddle replies that Dooku is the one who ran, ... straight into the arms of evil. And this noticeably upsets Dooku. It noticeably pisses him off. And the battle continues. It's even in terms of saber combat until Dooku is able to catch her when she's doing a jumping attack, force pushing her into the in between where the hangar door closes,
Yeah.
and force manipulation on the handle. Door shuts, crushes her. Um, and Dooku looks remorseful for a bit, and then Sidious says his infamous line of "Rise, my friend," which we recognize from when he did that with Anakin. And all regret leaves Dooku as he turns and addresses Sidious as Master, which also is kind of parallel to Anakin's own fall to the dark side. Suddenly, a weakened Yaddle, using all of her might, literally forces the door with the Force open, and that lets into the hangar one last bastion of light, literally and figuratively, one last bastion of light and hope for both Dooku and the galaxy to rise up against evil. A light so powerful, I might add, that you can see Sidious literally covering up and covering up his face from the light, which is, I think, great metaphorical storytelling. Dooku looks like he might have one last chance to do the right thing, and then Yaddle collapses, the door closes, the room fills with darkness once more, and Dooku has made the full transition to Darth Tyrannus in this moment, reciting Sidious's bullshit to Yaddle of, "I only want to bring peace and order to the galaxy." To which Yaddle replies in her pained, dying words to Dooku, "Already so many have suffered for what you call order." Um, and again, this is where it helps that this show was coming out at the same time Andor was, because we were already getting those parallels in live action in a different era of Star Wars, and now we're seeing it here in animated form as early back as like right as the Phantom Menace was taking place. So as she is on her last moments, Dooku says, "Then let me give you peace, Master Yaddle." Yaddle looks heartbroken. She accepts her fate as Dooku's lightsaber blade ignites. He kills her. Dooku looks emotional. He looks emotionless, and the screen fades to black on a shot of a smiling Sidious's evil yellow eyes.
Yeah, that's so cool. Like, this is just, I love Palpatine in most his appearances. There is one appearance of Palpatine I don't like, but we are not here to discuss that. I think Palpatine is just the ultimate villain. He is behind everything. He's so clever. He's so manipulative. I love him. He knows what to say every time. He knows what to do, when to be aggressive, when to be subtle. He knows when to be friendly. He is just the perfect manipulator, and he can manipulate anybody. He manipulates Anakin, he manipulates Maul, he manipulates Vader when he is Vader, he manipulates Dooku, he manipulates Luke, he manipulates everybody, and I love that. I love that.
I mean, he is the ultimate mob boss. He just knows how to play everyone like a fiddle. But I mean, in the future, he will eventually meet the downfall at the hands of his own hubris, as did the people he helped cause their fall.
I rewatched the Phantom Menace very recently to write questions for the Jedi Masters Cup. Spoilers: there are going to be Phantom Menace questions in the Jedi Masters Cup. Woohoo! What a surprise! And I just think that Palpatine is at its best in the Phantom Menace. Well, not at its best, but I really like him in the Phantom Menace because he seems like a cheerful guy, like a grandpa. That's like, he's like, "Oh, I'm going to watch your career, and oh wow, you chose me to be chancellor. I never thought about it." He looks so benign if you didn't know who he is. You know what I mean?
And that's why when he transforms into Darth Sidious in Revenge of the Sith onward, like that lightning strike that he let out that Mace Windu redirected back at him, it essentially removed the literal facade. Like
Yeah.
like all the ugliness and evil within him is now part of his outside.
Mhm.
Whereas he could always keep up that facade um, in public for the longest time before that.
Yeah.
And I have to assume that, like, maybe because the dark side just manipulates the force, maybe he was manipulating the force around him to keep that
There is
appearance up.
that's a very popular theory, and I don't know if I believe it. I think he just sapped himself like an idiot. But
I mean that
yeah,
too, but it's like we always hear people say, and I don't know how true it
yes,
actually is, but like
yes,
the ugly, like the more hatred you have, the more it reflects what you look like on the outside.
mm,
Like ugliness on the inside eventually
yes.
manifests to the
And
surface.
he has always has hatred. But I don't know if I am a supporter of the theory of him using an illusion, but it could be. Why not? I mean, we have seen crazier things done with the Force. So,
All right, you've got about 15 minutes before you have to go on to another thing.
yes,
So, is there any other points you want to bring up
yes.
about?
I actually want to talk about Yaddle's lightsaber form, because it was really weird to me, because I always assumed that the little and agile people could use the Ataru form that is used by Yoda and Ahsoka.
She did flip around a little bit, but
She
not
did
as much
flip.
as I thought she would.
She did flip around a little bit, but it didn't seem like a Taru. In fact, she does do the at some point the Soresu stance.
It did look
So
more defensive. It did look way more
right,
defensive.
it
Like
was really weird to see a little person like or a little being like Yaddle use the Soresu, even though, because I always assumed those kind of the Ataru was more suited for those kind of people, and I think it was really interesting. Just a little point, you know.
in terms of headcanon, I have to assume it's because part of her just did not want to attack Dooku. She probably thought
Maybe.
there was still a chance he could be brought back to the light, and that's why she wasn't giving it her all. And then once she realized, okay, he's too far gone, that's when she turned up the pressure. But she let her guard down for Dooku to put her in a position of vulnerability, and
Yeah,
that's what met her downfall. Was just she waited too long to actually be the aggressor,
yeah,
and it came back to bite her. But I am hoping Bryce Dallas Howard gets to do more work with this character.
yeah.
Um,
She was really good.
she was, and granted, I don't know what era we would highlight. Maybe the High Republic, if they ever wanted to do some animated stuff for that era. It would be nice to see Yaddle in her earlier years, and to have Bryce
I have
Dallas Howard voice
I
her.
have to read those books. I have to read those books.
I have read the first 3 comic issues, and and then that was it. Like, I've
Yeah.
got a lot of catching up to do in regards to that
I'm
as
not the
well.
biggest fan of that era. I am more the Galactic Civil War and like after the Battle of Endor era guy, and that's the content. The thing is, there is so much Star Wars content now in all of the media that I tend to gravitate towards the eras I like more. So I tend to like disregard the other eras.
Okay,
So
my final thought on this is the same as Case in the comment section. This episode was awesome. My favorite of all the Tales of the Jedi.
yeah, yeah, I agree.
I
Yeah.
agree with this 100%. This is definitely
Mhm.
one of my favorites as well. Well, this is my absolute
Yes,
favorite as well.
it's my favorite as well. Yeah.
So now we got to rush because we got 10 minutes left. Forces of Destiny season 2 episode 10, Monster Misunderstanding is the title. Released May 4th, Star Wars Day 2018, directed by Brad Rao and written by Nicole Dubuc. Official description: Queen Amidala helps solve the mystery of why a Sando aqua monster is attacking the docks of Naboo when she interrupts poachers attempting to steal the creature's baby. That's the literal description of what happened. So I just want to take a moment to give a note about Forces of Destiny. Star Wars in all its forms has always been about teaching its fans some kind of life lesson, sometimes subtle, sometimes blatant. Forces of Destiny, while it was created with the intention of also selling new toys to appeal to the Barbie doll crowd who also wanted to be badasses at the same time. Forces of Destiny is another medium in Star Wars being used to teach life lessons and also to fill in certain timeline gaps that further flesh out the characters we like. But because of the connection to the dolls it was trying to sell, I don't necessarily know if this show was given a fair shot by a lot of viewers. That being said, I still like the show. I still like
Yeah,
the animation style. It's
there are some episodes that are worse. There are some episodes that are great. So
The animation style is kind of an updated version of the 2D Clone Wars series. I like the stories told within Forces of Destiny, and I like what it set out to do. And in the case of this episode, the life lesson at play was, as said by Queen Amidala at the very end of this episode, sometimes the best solution isn't the most obvious one, which basically means use outside the box thinking and take a closer look at the root of the problem. That advice can be used on a small scale, like what we saw here in this episode when they were trying to figure out why this Sando aqua monster was freaking out. That advice could also be used on a very large scale to address income inequality, world hunger, drought, etc. You have to really take a deep look into the problem sometimes. It can't all just be black and white. Sometimes you got to look for the gray and figure out why are people making the choices that they are making. What is the correlation between it all? Because that's essentially what Star Wars is. It's about choices and what leads us to making them and why we make them. And this Sando monster was making a choice of like, my kid is in there. I got to do whatever's necessary to get my kid free. And Queen Amidala, she was presented with the information that Sando aqua monsters usually don't come on land. So this one was attacking the royal boathouse, by the way, not just the dock, but the royal boathouse for a purposeful reason. They go inside, they find the baby being poached, they free the baby, they stop the poachers, reunite the family, problem solved. One more thing, and then I'll let you say whatever your thoughts are. This episode, in my opinion, shows not only how good of a leader Padme Amidala was, it also shows how good of a mother she could have been to her kids had she lived to see them grow up. She's compassionate, she listens, she's understanding, and she's also very, very forgiving when angry creatures are lashing out with reckless abandon. In a way, one more point. In a way, this episode can also be used to as another example of why the Republic and the Jedi Order fell. Because Padme had qualities that a lot of the other leaders in those organizations lacked. She was curious, compassionate, she was humble, she had a willingness to listen and understand. And sometimes members of the Jedi Order and the Senate, they weren't able to exercise all of those qualities in the same way Padme had. And so you have to think a lot of the galaxy's problems might have been resolved, and Palpatine might not have rose to power in the way he did if there were more people like her within the galaxy.
Yeah, and the people like her in the galaxy formed the rebellion, actually. So, it's a good point.
I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't thought of like, yeah, there were people in the galaxy like Padme. They just didn't show themselves until later on when it was absolutely necessary for them to do something.
Exactly. I think, look, Padme is one of my favorite characters that I am not going to say she was underutilized, because the story that had to be told, we had to kill her. Like, there was no other two ways about it. She had to die. And it was necessary to die to tell the bigger story. But I really wish we could have seen her as a leader of the rebellion, because she was involved in it, as seen in one of the deleted scenes of Revenge of the Sith, which she meets with Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, and another senator that I don't remember his name. He was black with a beard. I don't remember him. But I just want to say, I really like the message of this, but the trope of, I wonder why this monster is attacking us. They got the baby. It's something that has been used throughout cinema and storytelling like for ages, and I called it from second one. It has been used in a Dragon Ball Z episode. It has been used in Land Before Time. I think it was movie 2, I believe. It has been used in the movie Home from DreamWorks. And I'm sure it has been used in a lot of other things that I can't remember right now.
Just a comment from Case. There are a couple books about Padme, like
Yes.
Queen's Peril, Queen's Shadow, and Queen's Hope. I believe the last one of those books actually features the first ever transgender clone trooper, or am I thinking of something farther down the road?
Here's the thing. As I said, I am focusing on consuming the media of the eras I gravitate more towards. So I haven't read anything pre-Phantom Menace yet. I think I will probably start with the Padawan of The Apprentice. That's Obi-Wan Kenobi. I probably start with that at some point, but I have a lot of things to read before I change eras. So I don't know. I'm sure they are great, those books, though.
Fair enough. Just one last point I'd like to make. It was cool to see the Padme's Queen era highlighted in this episode, because we didn't really get a lot of that. We kind of saw her be queen for the Phantom Menace, and then we kind of just jumped to her senatorial role from Attack of the Clones onward until her passing. So there's still a lot of time to be explored as to like what was going on in those 10 years in between the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones.
So yeah, I don't have control of the stream yet, so I don't know if we should like cut here or something. But Nico seems to have left us now, so I am going to take this opportunity to remind you all to donate to the link that's scrolling down while we have Nico back. Hey.
Well, I'm back, and there is no link yet actually there. I'm just saying, like, sorry. This is my little reminder of like, there is a charity stream happening. It will be 46 hours long. You can watch it on twitch.tv/Nicholas Starhart. Once I have the donation link ready, I will share it with all of you, and you can go from there. I don't know what my financial goal will be yet, but I'm just hoping to do whatever good I can and make it work from there. Also, just to plug a few other things, like, yep, there's Building for Thon 2 up there. Also, coming up let me get the banner off for just a second. World's Scariest Police Chases. It's another concert/wrestling event, wink, wink, taking place on 885th Avenue, New Kensington, Pennsylvania. That's Friday the 13th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. $10. I think donations. I think we're accepting donations because I think it might be a free show. I'm not sure. I forget at the moment. I might be wrestling on the show. I've asked for a match. I don't have an opponent listed yet, so we'll just see how things go. I'm going to work, and we'll just go from there. Also, and this is long story short, I've kind of had a slight falling out with the hierarchy at Rise, but I still care about them. I still want to promote their stuff. So please, if you're in the Uniontown area, or if you're just looking for wrestling in Western Pennsylvania that you want to go check out, the very next day, Saturday, January 14th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the Uniontown Mall, Lee Moriarty and Brian Pillman Jr. are making appearances at this show. They will be wrestling. I believe the main event will see Edric Everhart, the newly crowned Rise Grand Champion, defending his title against Chase Oliver. So go check that out. And is there anything I'm forgetting? Oh, yeah. Please, depending on how you're watching the show, please give it a like, subscribe, share it, thumbs up, whatever the hell. Again, our YouTube channel is Reconnecting with the Force. So youtube.com/@Reconnecting with the Force is the shortcut to get there, or twitch.tv/Reconnecting with the Force, or at Reconnect Force on Twitter. And of course, let me advertise the next episode of this podcast, which will hopefully be next week. Again, we'll see if I can get my act together and we can keep a strong schedule. But yeah, we're discussing it. We're discussing Attack of the Clones. I think I've subtitled that episode "Quit Cloning Around," which is kind of, some nice wordplay there. But yeah, those are all of the things I can plug. Oh yeah, at Nico Furioso PW on Twitter and Instagram, twitch.tv/Nicholas Starhart on Twitch. David, where can the good people find you, and what do you have to plug?
Well, I am the admin of Opening Night Trivia that we are doing. Next season is going to start with the Geek Grand Championship League and the Geek Teams Championship League. So you can sign up there and you can watch our matches there. And we are going to start with the Jedi Masters Cup, which is going to be 114 matches total in 1 year of Star Wars, just Star Wars. So if you like Star Wars, you could probably watch those. So yeah, that is in Opening Night Trivia YouTube channel. And you can join our Facebook page in Opening Night Trivia just to be,
And I am so happy to be back in the trivia community.
Yes,
it was just needed for a break for last year, but I'm glad to be back. I have to obviously study now, which is going to be a pain in the ass. I might just be one of those guys who forgoes the mixed bag and just scraps it from my geek matches. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Again, I'm going to try and be as consistent as I can with future uploads because I'm just a one-man show. Granted, I have a ton of panelists here, but I'm kind of running things behind the scenes all by myself, with Case occasionally helping out with thumbnails and whatnot. But I'm trying to do this all by myself, whether I want to or not. So, granted, in some cases I kind of do, other cases I don't. It all depends on whether or not I'm succeeding. But either way, see you next week, hopefully, for Attack of the Clones. May the Force be with you again, always. I'm going to end the broadcast here. Bye.